Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition, to another installment of Hashtag Fade to Black. I am your host, Donnell Labonte Morge, here with Anita Joe, aka Teach, here with CP Way, here with Beast Johnson. Welcome. This is a very special show, ladies and gentlemen. This is not only just a continuation of Wednesday's show, this is also our first time primarily live on YouTube. How's everybody doing?
Let's get it.
Wonderful.
Tired but good.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So this is good. Ladies and gentlemen, the last show we had, it was pretty intense, where we was just talking about, voting, and so we couldn't get all the way through because we went to overtime. But today we're gonna get into it. But you know what we gotta start off with first? We always gotta start off with our opening statements. And Beast Johnson, I think it's time for you to give us your statement first.
All right. So my opening statement is find inspiration. Whether it's inspiration for yourself, inspiration for others, find that inspiration and find that way to be inspiring, whether it be with your words or your actions. Proper inspiration can be the catalyst to achieve the goal that you actually need to do. You know, we often get caught up in the order of things that we foresee a plan should take. And especially when that plan involves other outside individuals. So you always want to express that particular order or particular plan. And sometimes it could go over their heads or they're just not receptive. But with the right amount of inspiration, you could lead them into that plan and now spend your time answering the questions instead of giving a lecture, because they are inspired to know more so that they can do more. So no matter what it is, try to find the inspiration to lead to the catalyst for the change that you're looking for. And that'll be my opening statement.
All right, I'm going to piggyback off of Beast Johnson. This is an incredibly important moment, and there is an opportunity for all the descendants of people that were captured and enslaved and trafficked across the Atlantic and brought to the Americas and enslaved in the Americas. This is now a great moment in our struggle for liberation and independence. There are a lot of people who have figured this thing out, have benefited from the fact that for the last 60 years, we've had access to information when we didn't before. That access to information multiplied exponentially with the rise of the internet. So now we have brilliant thinkers that have studied this in a way that hasn't been before. And right now is a great moment for us to finally exercise our own self-determination, our own desires, and take control of our destiny. Don't be discouraged. Don't be one of those people that is at home and feels discouraged because it looks like doors are closing for you. They're actually opening. And hopefully on tonight's show, we'll be able to expose or reveal some of those doors that are opening. That's my opening statement.
Nangadef. How is everyone doing this evening? Children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. I was thinking about education and the education that is offered in several communities. Free education, private education, above the opportunity to go and sit in the classroom. As parents, as community people, with this transition of children no longer going to the classroom, but sitting in their bedroom or at the kitchen table or in the dining room or somewhere in the home, taking lessons online. In the African American community, there has always been an issue of low attendance in parent-teacher conference. Parents are too busy, scheduling conflicts is always a reason why that parent does not show for parent-teacher conference. So now that children are learning online, I want to know the stats on the parent-teacher conference. I want to know how involved will the parents get into the learning of their children. We have the opportunities. We have the opportunities that our ancestors did not have on this soil. But sometimes our opportunities can be missed because we as parents are not focused on making sure the child is learning, and or coupled with that, making sure the school is offering the best education. And not just education in terms of indoctrination, but teaching the students critical analysis, teaching them how to think for themselves and understand community problems, understand who they are in relation to the household, in relation to the community, in relation to the broader society. Children are our future. So let us teach them and train them that we may be proud of them to be the new leaders of tomorrow. And that's my opening statement.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for their opening statements. This world is crazy, man. This world gets crazier by just the seconds, not even minutes, not even hours. You know what? Not even seconds, milliseconds. Did y'all heard the news that there were a white supremacist, bunch of white supremacist group that was trying to kidnap the mayor? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the mayor of Michigan. Because they don't want to wear masks. They believe that she's a terrorist, believe that she's going against everything that the current administration is doing, and that they was doing it out of the love and respect of this country. Sometimes it don't even cease to amaze me how people are nowadays. Not even, I think it goes beyond this disease on how people really are. Everything starts from the top. Period. It just don't happen in the middle or happen at the bottom. Everything starts from the top. You know the old saying, all shit roll downhill? It don't happen in the middle. It doesn't happen at the end. But we always knew that about this country. But the actions, what really makes everybody jaw drop. Saying it, yeah, is expected. The action is just like, yo, like that just happened. So I think it was 7 individuals that did this, were attempting, take that back, attempting to do this. But imagine if it was 7 brothers. You know that the media would have painted them with a broad brush, sitting there calling them thugs, hooligans, and whatever that came is a nice way of not calling them the N word. And we'll already have them in jail. They wouldn't postpone their freaking trial or their hearing months, 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year. The day they got caught, the next day they would have had their hearing. So yes, it ceases to amaze me of what people say. But how they do it is really opening my eyes to not only what this country and the solid majority is capable of, is what they are planning to do next. And that will be my final thought. But before we go on into our show, so we can continue on with our conversation. Teach, you will start off, then Seep Away, then Beast Johnson, and then me. I'm gonna try to moderate as best I can, because last time I let everybody, have their way and all that stuff, and there are times that I should have stepped in. So I'm gonna do a much better job in stepping in to better control everybody, to hear everybody out, and that nobody's not talking over nobody and all that stuff. So I'm gonna try to play host, but also I'm gonna get my 2 cents in as well. But other than that, once we get started, Teach, you got the lead. So let's go ahead and continue on with this conversation. And then also I forgot about putting the Cheddar Boy Popcorn logo up. So don't forget, realcheddarboypopcorn.com. Check it out. Brand new store. Mr. Jones, congratulations. All right, go ahead, Teach.
All right. Well, I just want to clarify some of the points that you were making about the kidnapping. It was not the mayor. It was the governor of our state, Gretchen Whitmer. That's the state of Michigan. And there were 13 individuals that were planning this coup and overtake of the government. And when I first heard the news, I immediately went back to the first presidential debate where the president said to stand by.
Stand back and stand by.
Stand back and stand by. And we could said last week it would have been a conspiracy theory. This week it rings true. There are individual factions that's gathering, that's ready to start war and overthrow the government. But if you say it before it happens, it's a conspiracy theory. And for me, I love conspiracy theories because conspiracy theories most times are proven to be true. The reason why they call it a conspiracy theory is because it's so wild and so far from what people can imagine can happen. People can't wrap their minds around it. But when it happens, it's like, oh, they really were planning to overthrow the government. And there's so many cases in history. The Tuskegee experiment, that was a conspiracy theory until the case was opened up wide and made public. And it's like,
Yeah.
so I love conspiracy theories because within them is the truth. It's just that the people hearing them and the community at large and those that are actively participating in the actual actions of the theory don't want you to believe that it's possible. So I agree with you, Donnell, the way the media is dealing with this. They're not giving them the same the same media attention in terms of calling them homegrown terrorists. I've seen a few different names out there, like the ISIS terrorists and so forth and so on. These are individuals, because of their color, they're just concerned citizens that want to exercise their constitutional right to overthrow the government. So
Yeah.
so they have a valid reason for doing what they're doing because Constitution says that they can. But if any other entity of a different race, it would be totally blown in a way to make them look like they are the most worst people in the world. So I totally agree. The media is biased and plays favoritism towards one race over the other.
Yep, this is true. Anybody else got anything to add?
I'll just add.
What's spoken on my end? Go ahead.
I'll just add simply, again, this highlights the thing that I've been trying to get people to think about and understand, which is with this upcoming election, there's going to be a crisis. If Donald Trump wins, these very people will feel empowered. And if he loses, they are going to take these kinds of actions because in their mind, they believe they are defending the legitimate government that is based on the Constitution. Okay? So what I hear a lot of our community doing is engaging in discussion within the parameter of, we got to get Trump out of office and we got to vote Biden in. They're having discussions within the political system. And I don't believe that our community has properly analyzed and are preparing our community to understand what the likely scenarios are with each candidate winning. And I posted in our group not too long ago, Noam Chomsky, perhaps America's most well-known independent dissident thinker, has said that all the scenarios that play out, that if Trump loses, there is going to be this kind of action by his supporters. And so the question we should be talking about is not who to vote for. The questions we should be talking about is if this candidate wins, how are we going to respond when X, Y, and Z happens? Or if this candidate wins, how are we going to respond? I don't think we're doing enough discussing of that kind of situation. But what happened, I think, is evidence of what we've been saying, right? There are people out there that if Trump doesn't win this election, they are going to see it as a coup from an illegitimate government taking over, and they are prepared to engage in a civil war to defend what they consider to be the legitimate government.
Anybody else? Floor still open?
I'll agree with Seaway to the severity and intensity of this situation, as well as another issue we as Black culture in America have is we're still responding with emotion. And we're almost forcing ourselves not to find ration and logic in the emotion first. So we want to be mad, but we can't really explain why we're mad. Because a lot of us don't understand. Just it's just responding off knee-jerk reaction. And to add to that, I just saw a report of a black man that is currently incarcerated for killing 4 racist detectives, as the story goes. And he is quoted as saying something, paraphrased to the extent of, "I'm just tired of dealing with it. And I don't care if I die over this, but something's got to get done." So to hear that type of rhetoric come from a black man after an action like that definitely shows you that a war is coming. And it'll be a multifaceted war that could very well be the complete downfall of the American civilization. Like, historically speaking, this could be the moment that leads to us being referred to in the same breath as the Greeks and the Romans and the Egyptians and all the other great civilizations of old. This could be our moment.
Yes.
Because it's really getting to that point. Like, if you want to start talking biblical, yeah, I already threw out Sodom and Gomorrah. Safeway is also hidden with Revelations. You could also consider this as part of the letters to the Corinthians. There's many parallels in the Bible right now that show you that shit getting ugly, and you can either get right or get gone. But one way or the other, it's going to happen. So we should definitely educate ourselves. We definitely need to be alert and aware of what's going on.
Okay.
So my question is, and this is just simply a rhetorical question. We see what's going on, and there is conversation, but when it comes to actually organizing a military strike, I don't hear those conversations. I'm not privy to those conversations. I won't say that they're not going on. I'm just saying that I'm not privy to it. And I don't think that we're thinking about self-governance on this soil. I just don't think that we're thinking that way. And so that's why we're not hearing, or I'll just stick to myself. That's why I'm not hearing these conversations, because we're not thinking outside of the box. We're thinking the way that we have been programmed to think.
Now, I would say this, Teach, as far as like those type of conversations, I can attest that they are being had, but they're being had by individuals who publicly perceive as not having any type of military knowledge or experience. So like it's more in the guise of Minutemen, militia, revolutionary, guerrilla war tactics is how is really what's being discussed more, but not in a uniform military format.
But the only military faction that we already saw was not fucking around coalition. But that's the only one.
That's the closest thing we got right now.
Yeah, that's the closest one. But
the military aspect is just one component. And I think, Teach, there are plenty of people not only thinking outside the box that are taking action. Let me give you an example. I posted to our group a while back about Professor Mustafa Ansari. He has developed the Afro Descendants formation that has filed a court case at the Inter-American Commission. He has 150,000 people that are registered on this petition, and they have brought the United States up in this regional court that the United States is a party to, even though they haven't ratified the particular instrument that is being used against them. That's just one example. we had on Wednesday's show, we had Prince Michael. This is another formation. They're developing a blockchain solution, again, so that our Black community in America could exercise or go through the process of conducting their own elections to signal or show that we have independent thinking and independent capacity, and are exercising self-determination. There is another formation. You have, for example, the lineage restoration movement, right, which is putting together its council to organize people based on their lineage and then interact with their lineage communities in Africa, totally bypassing government structures, right, so that the communities can work together to do their own development planning independent of government. So these are just 3 examples of how many people within our community are seizing upon what Beast Johnson said, which is the fall of the American empire is both a tragedy and a great opportunity. Those who are prepared, right, to move forward when the empire and its jurisdiction and its might fall, those who are prepared to go forward because they have been looking forward into the future and been preparing and planning for it, are going to be those that are in position to seize the opportunity and say, finally, the yoke of oppression that has been on our ancestors. And when I say ancestors, I'm not just talking about the people, from the 60s or people from 1860s or people from 1780s, right? I'm talking about all of our ancestors, the vast majority of whom never wanted to stay in America, never wanted to be here. And most of them were fighting in their best capacity to figure out, how do I remove myself from the control of the people that enslaved me? There are lots of formations. We just need to get more people involved in them.
So let me ask you this, Superway. Had these 13 individuals been successful at kidnapping our governor and taking over the state of Michigan, how would those 3 entities help me?
I never said that they would, and I can't speak for them. All I'm saying is that a wise man once told me, if you want to solve a problem, you got to go to the origin of the problem. Okay, so our solution comes from reverse engineering the process that happened to us. But if we don't understand the process, it's going to be difficult for us to reverse engineer it and come up with the solutions. Whatever that group in militia is doing, that's a conflict between one group of white people and another group of white people. And whenever they have those conflicts, we get caught up in the crossfire. Okay? We don't have a dog in that, in my opinion. We don't have a dog. So my question to you is what do you think is the significance of that?
What do I think is the significance?
Yeah.
My statement was that we were not prepared. I had not been privy to any conversations that involve military. Militarily, we're not prepared. You may not feel that you have any interest in Michigan's governor being kidnapped and the overtake of the government. I do, because I do live in Michigan. I have a vested interest.
It's not that we have an interest. We don't have a dog in that fight. We have an interest, right?
Well, what is the dog? The dog in the fight is the interest.
No.
Isn't that the interest?
No, what I'm saying is our interest is independent of the interest of either of those 2 combatants. That's all I'm saying. We don't have to choose sides between the 2 groups of white people that are fighting. Our interest is independent of those 2 groups.
Okay, I guess I see it totally different, because it directly affects me. If I don't know the connection that these people have, but if they have the connection that I think they have and the policies that they want to implement that would directly be adverse to me, oh yes, hell yes, I have a dog in that fight. Because we're talking about governance, how you're going to govern the people in this particular state. And as a citizen of this state, if the government that wants to take over is really presenting ideals or forging ideals that's worse than is already here, I cannot be passive. I cannot say, oh, well, they're just two different white groups fighting and, one take over the other. And no, I can't be stuck. That is two white racial groups fighting. I have to look at the policies that they want to implement and what it is that they want to do with the other races of people that they so-called took over to take over.
Nobody
You
is
have
suggesting.
you have to be interested
Nobody
in
is
how you're
suggest-
governed.
Yes, I agree. But nobody is suggesting that you be passive. What we're saying is, don't fall for the idea that you have to choose one group. You have to pick a side which white group you're going to support.
That wasn't my suggestion.
Okay,
I started out saying that we did not have a military force that can take over. If it's up for grabs, we can up and grab it. But we don't have that think tank to do that. That's what I'm saying.
First of all, we have several think tanks. Second of all, I agree with you. Not only do we not have a military force to take over, it's entirely foolish for that to even be our goal. Nobody is suggesting we develop a military force to try to attack the United States. That's foolish. That's a suicide mission, and that's foolish. Most responsible groups that are talking about black militias are saying we need to exercise our constitutional rights to bear arms and be present whenever the police are called so that we can serve as a community defense force. That's what the NFAC Commission is talking about. NFAC, the Not Fucking Around Coalition, is not talking about forming a militia to attack the United States. Okay? Now, everybody knows about NFAC, but none of us on this panel have joined or become members of NFAC. Nobody is paying dues to NFAC to support those people who could form a community protection force. So most responsible black think tanks are not talking about forming militias as a way to attack the United States. They are simply saying that if the police are called into a situation, we need to have our own armed citizens who can serve as a deterrence to make sure that the police don't use force and violate our civil and human rights. Because if you have 150, of our people that are armed standing there who know the law and know how such things are supposed to go, they're not putting a knee on George Floyd's neck, and they're not shooting my cousin Jacob Blake 7 times in the back. They're not doing that. Now, again, back to your point, right? Whatever that white militia did in Michigan, right? Again, nobody is counseling us to say we should be passive. In fact, I do the exact opposite. I am constantly putting out there things that we should be doing, right, on our own without having to join either one of those parties. Our interests are our own. This is what Martin Luther King, what Malcolm X, all of our great leaders coming out of the 60s were trying to teach us, which is, and this is what Africa is trying to teach us, we have to develop our own position and have our own formations who can articulate and defend our own position.
Okay, let me give you another rhetorical question. if this militia group had been successful and their ideals are they want to turn Michigan into a slave state, and the ideal slaves are African Americans, and they had a militia, now they have the Michigan National Guard, and so forth and so on. They have the firepower to physically rain down on the state and force us to be slaves. What are we to do? Who is in place to say, oh no, that is not happening? This is why I say we cannot be passive, because there are groups out there that want to go backwards. And so my question was not overtaking the whole United States. I was just looking at the fact that they organized themselves and designed a plan, and their plan was to kidnap the governor of the state of Michigan and overthrow the government. This is real. Now, everything else they wanted to do, I'm not privy to that. I don't know, because I didn't really research the whole entire story. But just the fact that these individuals plotted and was beginning to execute their plan, the first thing was to get the governor out the way and then overtake the government. And overtaking the government means that they installed their own governor, lieutenant governor, and other key positions, which means heads gonna roll around the state. I don't know what their politics are. I don't know what their total agenda is. But in real time, we're dealing with a group of individuals that were bold enough to attempt to overthrow the state of Michigan. Now, we don't even know how many other groups around the whole United States are planning the same thing or not. We don't have no knowledge, but we do have this one plan exposed. And as African Americans, as a resident of the state of Michigan, being born in the state of Michigan, this directly affects me. Where are my allies? Who will fight for me? This is what we're talking about. When we talk about ideas and plans and things, there's two things that I look for. One, how functional is that idea if implemented? And is it practical? So today, I'm looking for a practical solution to the problem that was presented to the state of Michigan.
Beast George, you got anything to add?
No.
You just said
I need you to interpret. I need you to interpret what I said. You already interpreted.
It was well spoken. I mean,
question, and you don't expect anybody to answer it. You said it was rhetorical, so.
Well, it's rhetorical. If you want to answer it, feel free.
No, you said it was rhetorical, but I would ask you. I would ask you, right? Do you think, since you said this is affecting you and that's your state, do you think either the Democratic or Republican parties is going to respond to your concerns and protect you? You ask a great question. I agree with you. Who is going to protect you, serve your interests? And my question to you is, do you think any of the established parties is going to do that?
Well,
No.
A different president, maybe, because this president actually has a beef with the governor. And from what I understand, it's a heated beef. And they have gone at it. And I don't have any faith in the current administration to do what is right. So it seemed to me that with a good administration, if in fact our state found ourselves in a vulnerable position and we needed the National Guard or the Army or any of the federal services to come in and squash it, under another administration, I would have confidence that they would come in and set the state of Michigan right. But under this administration, just the way we see him handle the coronavirus, not taking responsibility, in total denial, fighting with the governors of the state that we're really trying to curb the coronavirus in their states, he was not supportive. So he may say, let it fall where it may. I'm not responsible. That's your state. You do what you need to do. So I have no faith or confidence in that type of leader and or leadership.
Do you have faith in the other candidate running for president?
I don't know.
You know what? I'm sorry, Chief. I'm going here. I'm gonna answer that. Reason why I would say Joe Biden will do something. Number one, votes. Number two, he do got a little bit of pull as being vice president when he under the Obama administration. I'm shocked that he's not even running on that as much in this in his campaign. But I will believe Biden would do something and be like, "Hey, Mr. President, you got to do something," because eventually Congress is going to pressure the administration. Like, look, you don't like her. Yes, she don't like you. But guess what? They are trying to kill her, kidnap her, and kill her because people are listening to you. It's time for you to fix this. So I'm not going to let this conversation continue. Like nobody's not going to do absolutely nothing. Because let's not forget, Michigan was one of the states that Hillary needed to win, which she did not campaign in, which she lost by double digits. So let's not think that either party ain't gonna do anything, because I believe the Republican Party will be like, yo, we before her, we did have Republican governor too. So
when the black community, and listen, let me preface this. I am not even I'm not pro-Trump, I'm not pro-Biden, I'm not even I don't consent to this government. But my understanding is when the black community needed Joe Biden, his response was the crime bill.
Well, see, okay, this is why I want to put on the crime bill. Yes, he did that. He did it. And I'm saying it, like I said, I lean to the left, but I criticize the left as much as I criticize the right. I'm not pro Joe Biden at all. Not saying that. But I will say this. I will give credit which credit's due because I consider myself a respectable hater. I will say that again. A respectable hater. That crime bill, yes, it put a lot of brothers away. But y'all got to think, where did that crime bill actually stem from? Joe Biden didn't think of that bill just like, I'm just going to put out a bill that's going to put a lot of black people in jail. That stems from the war on drugs that started from Richard Nixon. If we're going to tell history, we got to tell it right and not just stick on one. Yes, Joe Biden's bill was critical, but which one was more critical? Joe Biden's crime bill or the war on drugs that we are still fighting to this day, where actually drugs was from a cartel that Mr. Ronald Reagan, Mr. Ronald Reagan, who sit there, that a lot of people say that he's the best president that we ever had, God-fearing man, who allowed drugs to be flooded into the black communities.
So I agree with you. And first of all, I can speak because my family was a part of the Nixon administration. My great granduncle served as the director of the Job Corps. his job, he said, let me give these white folks a chance, right? Nixon is saying that he wants to help black communities because remember, this came after the riots in 67, right? Came after the Newark riot, in which, again, my family, right, my great-great-granduncle was the biggest pastor in Newark, and he told the people, freedom doesn't come cheap, right? So my family got involved with the Nixon administration because he said, look, we want to prevent this from happening again. We understand black people need jobs and education. So my family literally got involved at the highest levels of this government and said, we're going to give them a chance. Gave my great-granduncle a $2.5 billion budget to create jobs for black people. And my uncle, having been in the Nixon administration at the same time that Nixon declared the drug war, realized that even when you get into these high positions, these people are vipers who will backstab and betray. And he became disillusioned with the reform process. Now, my point is this: what are we to make of the fact that Biden was willing to become the champion of Nixon's policies by being the champion of the crime bill? How are we as black people supposed to factor that into what's being presented to us now, which is take the overt white supremacists versus the covert white supremacists? We say, you know the tree by the fruit that it bears. Given the fact that Biden has consistently been given opportunities, right, in positions of power, right, and he has consistently shown that he will be the champion of policies that hurt black people, how are we to factor that into our calculations now?
But people will combat you. I'm sorry, Teach. Go ahead, Teach.
Don't do crime. It's really simple.
So if
the
they
crime
were to,
bill does not affect me because I'm not a criminal.
If they tell you, if they tell Beast that wearing his dreadlocks is a crime, is your response to then say, well, Beast, you got to cut your dreadlocks because don't do crime, because they said it's a crime. I was a victim of the war, right?
I'll give you a better one.
Go ahead, Beast.
I'll give you a better one. And this is an actual crime. If I give you some merchandise or give you an item, if I bless you with something and then come to find out it was stolen, whether I know or you have now committed the crime of unlawful possession of stolen merchandise, either before or after the fact. You will actually have to appear in court for that. That's a charge that goes to your record and time does get served. So to follow that model of don't do crime, the laws are so varied and meticulously manipulative that you could literally just, like you said, be living your life, your good little Christian life, and have broken the law and not realized it.
All right. So here's my thing. I'm sorry, I'm having to go military on y'all. So yes, agreed about the crime bill. I agreed. But here's my thing. That was on the federal level. Now, y'all remember during the Obama times, and still to this day, states' rights. They kept fighting the federal government, sitting there saying, well, we're a state. We don't need to do all that. So from Beast's standpoint, for me being from Virginia, under conservative leadership, they pushed those laws. They pushed it. So it's up on the states because they will add on to that too. See, people don't want to talk about that. Because you got 85%. But hold on. Yeah, so hear me out. So when the 4-star general, the commander of the army, sends out a policy, let's say his policy is everybody in the whole entire army gets Friday off. That gets passed down to the chain. Now, not trying to call out the Army. I'm not calling y'all out. I'm not saying that. I'm saying as an example.
Hypothetically speaking.
Hypothetically, it turns into a game of telephone because the commander may say, hey, I want everybody to get Friday off. And then the next thing, when it gets down to the lower levels, oh, you got Mondays off when it's actually Fridays. But let's say everything went down as it should. Commander's discretion, meaning that the commander could implement it or he could add on to it. So with me saying that, just because Joe Biden made this crime bill and it got pushed, many of these governors probably add on to it to make it even 10 times worse.
I agree, but that's not. I agree with what you're saying, but that doesn't absolve.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that absolves.
Watch this.
Absolves Joe Biden, but it's still at the same time you got to understand when these laws go to these certain states, because some governors just going to be like, you know what, I'm gonna take it a step
understood.
further.
But the question that I had put to you was not about that. The question I had put to you was, how do we assess Biden's continuous acceptance to be the champion of policies that hurt our community? So all of what you're saying, I agree with, but the topic at hand, the question at hand is Biden's personal role. And how does that influence what is happening in the election today?
Okay. So, like you said, hold on. Watch this. Hold on, and then I'm gonna let you go, B. Johnson. They would say he put a lot of people, got a lot of people on Medicare when he helped out Obama with the with Obamacare, aka the ACA,
to serve white people interests.
But guess what? A lot of black folks was insured. Like, for example, in Kentucky.
Agreed, but what I'm saying,
so that's a lot of fun. But see, people,
what I'm saying is we got
but hold on, let me finish. I'm answering your question. Let me answer your question.
Okay.
Because people will come back and they will say, I got insured through the Obamacare. So that's one. Then number two, the automobile industry, which was on this last leg, that had a lot of black workers that worked there. So they can come back with you on that as well. Then also with voter suppression as well. Joe Biden, with President Obama, was trying to get people to vote and stop the voter suppression down in the South.
Okay.
So people will come back and say that Joe Biden
here's the intelligent response to that, which is they have always put their interests first. And they are willing to allow black people to benefit if it happens to fit within their plan that primarily benefits them. So the conversation is not the conversation is when it comes to when black interest is in opposition to the white interest. That's the critical question, because the response that you're talking about presupposes, right, that we should vote for him because whenever black interests are in alignment with white interests, he'll do X, Y, and Z.
But it would still say that they benefited. They would say they benefited.
Hold on, but that's true of any candidate, right? The real question is when we have interests that are not in alignment with the white supremacy interests, right? That's where and let me give an actual example, because Teach had brought up, she said, don't do the crime. Well, let's remember the drug war, and particularly the marijuana drug war. First of all, you have to ask the question, how did marijuana become illegal? Well, that was the result of three specific families. The DuPont family, which was involved in chemicals, right? The Hearst family, which was involved in publishing. And there was one other family, I forget who it was, but they were political. And they realized that DuPont couldn't make his money in the chemical industry if hemp was legal, because hemp was the primary basis for all the products, paint products, rope making, paper making, all of that. DuPont wanted his chemical stuff to become, right, the basis of this economy. Now, DuPont was friends with the Hearst family. They controlled the media, right? Washington Post and all of that. And they had their political family. And so these three families said, we are going to criminalize hemp. Now, here's where I'm going with this. Once they used the media to drum up support against it, and they used the political families to pass the bills, right, so that the DuPont family could make the money, now they said having this plant is criminal. Now, when black people were intentionally kept out of the legitimate economy, particularly in black neighborhoods like Detroit or Chicago or Gary, Indiana, when black people who didn't have jobs, right, who didn't have the educational opportunities, and as a result, they couldn't qualify for the better jobs because they said, you're not qualified because you're not educated. But the reason they weren't educated is because they were prevented from getting the education. So what happened is you had an entire group of communities in these cities, right, that had no means of earning income in these cities. So since they couldn't participate in the American dream of capitalism in a legal, legitimate way, they turned to what? Illegal capitalism. And this government, championed at this point by Joe Biden, said, if you sell this plant, you are a criminal. You will go to jail. Destabilized entire families, suck the money, everything out of the communities. Now, hold on. This is the critical point. Hold on.
Okay, and then I'm gonna have to interrupt. Go
hold on. Here's the critical point. Now you have it that they are passing laws legalizing it. So the very same activity that our community engaged in for 40 years was called criminal. But now, because a group of white people have decided it's in their interest to legalize it, now it's legal. And in order to participate in the legal business of it, you have to get a license. To get that license, you got to apply to what? Their municipal structures, right? In order to get in as a grower, you got to have the land. We don't own the land; they dispossessed us of the land. So the vast majority of our community that was trying to use cannabis as an economy to survive and was criminalized for it is now prevented. We don't own the land, so we can't grow it. We don't have the connections. We can't go to the bank and get loans for the to develop the cannabis manufacturing stuff. We don't own the banks. So that entire system now that is now $1 billion economy in America that is primarily controlled by white people was done under the guise of law and order. And so what I'm saying is for Teach to say, so don't be a criminal, meaning if they tell you this is legal and this is not legal, regardless of your own critical thinking faculties, regardless of what you determine for yourself is helpful or harmful. The idea that don't be a criminal and this wouldn't be a problem, I'm showing you how that is completely, that entire episode of the drug war was white supremacists using law and order to commit genocide against us. And I am not willing at this point to counsel my community to participate in or put any faith in their law and order, because we have real life examples of the last 40 years of how that has devastated us.
Okay, now I'm about to come in. So all you're saying
before you do that, let me joke, because the issue that he's having and the issue he needs to understand as far as Biden goes, and mainly with any front-running publicized politician, you're trying to prove a conspiracy case. Like, you have to prove definitively that this man consciously went in with that knowledge and that effort. Because no matter how it was presented to him, or no matter how it was originally written, or at least the part that he saw and signed on to, you never really know what's being said behind closed doors. In politics, everybody's lying to everybody. So no matter what you're going into, off what somebody said, there's a good level of lie that went into it. So he might have went in there with the best intentions and thinking of this is not structured in that manner.
Beast, have you seen the compilation that was recently put together of about 30 minutes of Joe Biden commenting during this time on what he was saying about our community and why he was championing the crime bill? Because you make a good point.
And
we have the record that shows what his mindset was at the time.
And you used the correct word, was. And it's very hard. And it's funny. It's very hard for white people, but it's the hurdle they have to overcome. For those that did have those type of more selfish and racially motivated mindsets that have evolved and have changed, whether they still believe a little bit or, for whatever reason, they're changed. And that is obvious and apparent with everyone. And what we got to be careful with is if you look at anybody's history, especially recorded history, you're going to find them saying something they ain't had no business saying. So,
or doing.
Exactly.
Right.
I know there's many things that they're going to call on me when I get to that level. And they're going to say, we got video and comments of him saying this and that. I have to own up to that. But
what I'm talking about is not just what you said at one. I'm talking about track records. Come on, we're all adults. We're all adults.
I'm talking about that as well. I'm talking about that as well, because that goes along with Donnell's point.
If you look at
you can be a balanced fighter. Like you can have some. As long as you have a balanced record at the end of the day, that speaks better of your career than if you're all W's and you're the champ, you're doing everything right versus you're just some punch drunk journeyman that gets paid as a professional punching bag and you just got a shitload of L's. But if you got a nice little balanced record, that shows growth, it shows character, it shows a lot of human traits that you really do need, especially in this day and age. That was the whole hook.
That balanced record.
I wouldn't call it a balanced record, but it can be perceived that way, especially when you have enough counterpoints to your points. Like Donnell gave enough counterpoints to your points that an audience member hearing this would go in with that level of perceptive thought about Biden, especially if they didn't do any further due diligence on their end. They would go in thinking that, he has more of a balanced political record in contrast to Pence or Trump, especially Trump, being this is Trump's first political foray.
That might be the perception, and this is why you have to have people explaining why that's not so, right? Biden's crime bill disproportionately affected, right, the African-American community, and I would ask you, what has he done positive that has disproportionately benefited the Black community to make up from that? And I would say that Obamacare.
Okay, well, any question that you ask, honestly, because we're in America, you said this be grown. Honestly, any question politically in favor towards Blacks is not going to be an answer you want to hear. Because when you ask that question, I'm thinking about Wale. And Wale did a song, and when he made reference to actually meeting Obama and asking Obama the same exact questions that you asked him and be preaching on. And Obama basically gave him that real nigga no speech, like, it ain't but so much they gonna let a white man do that want to do right by Black folk. How much you think they gonna let me as a Black man do?
You're making my point for me. Thank you.
But let me jump on in, because y'all missing a big point in all of this. The biggest point that you're missing, because it seemed like we're holding Joe Biden's feet with this crime bill, which his feet should be. But here's the issue. Where was the people that sit there and say anything This is why it keeps going back to super PAC, super PAC, super PAC, super PAC. This is why we need a super PAC to really hold his foot to the fire. If we had super PAC back in the day, because it's kind of funny that nobody is not saying, everybody's saying stuff now and not even voting. Nobody is not doing anything. They sitting there saying, well, he did the crime bill. You just heard it because somebody brought it up today, right now. I'm not saying you should whip, I'm just saying. They are saying this now. Did you know about it a long, long time ago? Did your uncle or your aunt, did your mom or whoever relative that was in there back in the day pull you to the side and told you, yeah, Joe Biden, he put out that bill? But then my question to my aunt or my uncle that lived through that time or who got a felony from that time, did you put a group together? Did you groom politicians or tell your local congressmen or labormen like, hey, this shit ain't right?
Did
and
you
go
ever
to your town hall? But see, but
hold
that's
on,
it.
I'm asking you.
No. Hold on. I let you talk. Let me go ahead and finish. My point is, we are missing the point where people are sitting there now talking about this mess, and nobody's not putting a group together, grooming politicians, or at least going to these town hall meetings, like Chief was saying. Nobody don't go to these.
That's why I have
go
to step
the
in, is because you're incorrect when you said nobody did that. Apparently, you never read.
No,
hold on. You never read.
Nobody is doing that. I mean, because the sad thing is, people are finding out about this crime. Hold on, Sleepaway. You had your chance to talk. Let me get my speech in. Let me get my time. So what I'm saying, I could care less about a book or who an author or this or that. I'm talking from a simpleton. I'm talking about a regular person on the streets that is hearing this. I will feel robbed if I heard about Joe Biden's crime bill now. I would love to know that somebody who dealt with this a long time ago would have told me this, but rather than me finding out about it now. And then my question then would have been like, why weren't you involved in your politics or involved in your politics of your community, telling your electorates like, hey, this shit is bullshit?
Okay, so
let me get my Congress.
They choose to be passive.
A lot of people were involved, and what I'm saying is the people who were involved, right, on a political level. You had, if you ever read Eric Foner Jr.'s book on this, he chronicles the whole history of this period from all of the black people who were involved. So what I'm saying is,
I understand that, Superway. I understand that, but I'm saying I want action. Action.
Okay, so what? Okay.
Action. I understand somebody chronicled those times. No,
you missed what I said.
I understand that. Okay, go ahead.
Chronicles the people who were taking action. You had black people that were sitting on city councils in the District of Columbia, for example, where this thing really kicked off, who were part of the political black people in municipal positions of power, who were integral in the whole building of this drug war, representing us and taking actions. You had entire support group, non-governmental organizations that were involved. What I'm saying is, when you say nobody was there at that time taking action, you're saying that because you're not aware of it, because you haven't been informed about it. But there were. But you
would
think if that was going on then, that will be going on now. So where's the
Let me ask the real question. Question he's trying to ask. The real question he's asking is, if this individual that you speak of, Seaway, was able to chronicle all these different major political entities, and I'm assuming that's across the nation, correct? That wasn't just in one state. So with that being said, if this one man was able to get a hold of all these different individuals, why didn't that man, or why didn't those individuals come together and make something, a unified nationwide front like the NAACP?
because
That's
they
known
couldn't
throughout the
get-
nation.
because they couldn't get one black people, their own communities that they were representing. They couldn't get the masses of people involved, and two, because it is making my point that in spite of their Herculean effort,
But
they didn't have
The-
the political power to overcome at that time. So it
yes, you
almost
did.
sounds-
You
the
had
way
it. You had an
Donnell
individual
said it-
that chronicled.
no,
You had an individual that
you
chronicled.
had a-
Oh, hold on. No, you had an individual that chronicled you. You have this political sway, and that political sway runs through. It does associate itself with the entertainment and media. There's a multitude of different ways that you could have approached this, and it's not always about physically getting to the people. You could have subliminally put them in songs. You could have orchestrated some kind of either live action or animated feature snippet, 15 minutes, something like Schoolhouse Rock. I still know about the government and conjunction junction. What's your function? Working on
But let me
But that's what I'm saying. Like you said they couldn't do anything. You said they couldn't do anything and they couldn't get to the people.
I didn't say they couldn't do anything. What I'm
Let
saying
me
is
interject.
what they were doing.
Go ahead.
was not enough.
Let's see where we go. Let's see where we go. Then teach.
Yeah.
What they
Let's see
were
where-
doing was not enough to prove victorious. And I find it surprising that people who don't know this history are going to try to comment on what was done and what wasn't done when they you never even looked at what was done or wasn't done, or why what was done wasn't effective.
But see the way.
Okay.
To
If I may
blame
interject.
one. Go ahead. Teach.
Go ahead, teach.
What I'm hearing
I'm gonna grab the book too.
from Donnell's perspective, and it
Go
basically
ahead, Teach.
was missing in the black community is the after dinner chat or the fireside conversations. There was a time in the African American community after dinner, that's when you talked about things happening in the community. That's how information was funneled in. So with our elected officials, many of them on the front lines fighting the battle, and you have this researcher on the front lines gathering the information, he puts it in the book. But somehow or another, that information did not reach the dinner table. It did not reach home. It did not reach the father. It did not reach that auntie, that mother or grandmother or grandfather to tell the children. Okay, that is a breakdown. That's clearly our responsibility. These bills get signed, people grumble over them, but it did not come into the home, where every home should have known what was going on or had some idea of the impact that it would make on the African American community. It stayed in the political arena. It left the political arena and went into the literary circle in a book.
No,
But it did not go mouth to mouth, home to home, community to community.
Okay, so during this period, I completely disagree. Everybody was talking about their brother John who got locked up, their uncle who got. People were talking about what was actually affecting their lives at the moment. They were talking about that every single day. They just weren't talking about it in terms as the way a scholar would. And they weren't talking about the intricate.
It doesn't need to be scholarly. It does not need to be scholarly.
That's what I'm saying.
Because the people that it's affecting.
I just said people were talking about it in a non-scholarly way. So they were informed. The community was speaking its own language and were informed. Everybody knew so-and-so got 5 years because he was holding 3 bags on the corner. Everybody know that, the police planted this evidence on so-and-so. Everybody was talking about the case that got caught. It's not that we didn't know what was going on. What I'm saying is what we didn't understand and what we still don't understand today is the inner workings of how those systems were built and maintained. There are things going on right now that none of us right here are privy to, that are going on, that people.
And that's the conversation the teacher's talking about. That's
right.
That's the after dinner conversation that's not being.
Yeah.
No, it's
discussed.
not that it's not being had. You can't have a conversation when you're not in the room at the table. We only find out about those things after the fact.
Representatives voting, electing people to get them to the table.
No, okay.
But no, you don't want to elect anyone because you don't have a dog in the fight. Okay. And so you're not privy to the information.
Listen to
and you
me.
hear about it after.
Listen to me.
Okay.
Hold on.
No. That's a mischaracterization of what I'm saying. And as somebody whose family has sat at the highest levels, let me tell you, even when you get elected, they don't invite you to the real rooms of backdoor power where those things are done. That's what I'm saying. You're making my point for me that no matter how many people we elect and we put in offices, right? Where the things
that's
are
not
okay,
true.
I got you, teacher. I got you. This is what's not being discussed. When we say we know that you only know so much, but you can tell me what you know, and it may get me it may get me on par, and with enough hard work and dedication on my end, it can get me ahead of you. And that's the real thing. Everybody's thinking that they're going. No, let's be real. Most of us are not going to get even halfway to where we need to be. But the best way we can truly achieve our goals and truly see that success that we need to see is ensuring that those that are next to us, that are right along with us, have just as much information as we have. I use it for me example. I know I don't know everything when it comes to music. I'll be the first to tell you. As much as I do know, or people say that I do know, it's because I found it out. I found out it worked, and I wanted to make sure that, if nothing else, this information will help speed up your process. It's one less thing you have to worry about. One less bit of energy that you have to put into trying to figure it out because you already know an easier or quicker way to come about it, or easier references to use. You was given information that helped your journey just a little bit better.
Which one of us on this call has had an elected official come to your community and tell you, look, let me break it down to you. Let me tell you what's really happening.
How many of us have actually been? Let's be real. No, that's not a valid question. How many of us have actually been privy
in the meeting
just by life? Not in the meeting, just by life, to be in the same surrounding as an individual and be able to have that conversation.
Exactly. My question is, we're talking about electing representatives to represent us. I'm asking the question, when have representatives come back to you in your
because they were not groomed that way. You cannot do that.
I'm asking this question to highlight the futility of that process, because
because this what you can do. You have those campfire talks. You have those after dinner talks with your children and your close family members, those that are along that path and need that knowledge. You enlighten them. you have those campfire talks with those individuals that you run across in the community that could benefit from that type of knowledge. And
but
you
then also,
really have those campfire talks with them folk that you know need to hear this type of like, hey man, I'm trying to get in. What you trying to get in? Like, hey, look here, little boss. If you're trying to do this, this is shit you really need to know before you walk into it.
Right, and the piggyback what Beast Johnson said. Just like all these politicians that are pocketed by the big oil companies and all that stuff, they know when to come back and go to their masses and be like, "Hey, they about to put this bill out. We need you to push this." Same difference. So it goes back to the grooming.
I think what we, if I may say this,
go ahead, teach.
There's strength in numbers. Many times we can get one elected official to the table, but there's 12 slots. Why stop at one? Because that one is going to be, quote unquote, that token Negro. We have to get more to the table.
Excuse me.
It's all about saying
there's strength in numbers. There is strength in numbers, and we cannot put all the weight on that one individual because after all, they are one individual. But the community elects its representatives. That representative has an office, has a telephone number, and they hold meetings. If you as a citizen fail to call your representative, fail to communicate with your representative, fail to go out to the meetings where he may have an open town hall meeting, if you fail to go, you cannot blame your representative for not voicing your concern because you did not raise your voice.
Excellent point. Raise your hand if you have contacted your representative in the last 3 months.
I don't even know who mine is, and I'll be the first one to tell you that.
Okay, notice the one person in the room that has their hand up.
Okay.
Raise your hand if you have communicated with at least 10 members of the Congressional Black Caucus in the last 3 months.
Okay.
Okay.
And
so what I'm saying is, while you're talking a good game, right? It's about, there are various levels. There's personal responsibility, and then there's institutional and government responsibility. So what you just said, the person who is the most anti-government is also the person on this panel that is the most politically active. What I'm trying to show you.
In what way?
In the way that you just brought up. You said it's our responsibility, right, to make our communicate, make our representatives work for us. I'm saying that the people who are saying that, okay, I can tell you, I can actually pull up a list of every single congressional Black congressperson that I have contacted in the last 3 months. Okay.
For what purpose? And what was the result?
For the purpose was, right, for things that I considered to be my interest, and the result was I was completely ignored. So what I'm saying is, when you say do this, but you haven't done it, and when I have, and then when I report to you that when you do this, right, it is largely ineffective. I'm not just talking theory. I'm talking about actual experience saying, look, if you don't understand the nature of this system, and even when you try to work within it, you're not going to beat the casino. Okay?
Go ahead.
So I'm saying that out of all the people on this panel, right?
So you're saying everyone ignored your request.
Not only did they ignore the request, what I did was, you said put down your buckets where you are. So I have an organization that I'm president of. I got every single member of our organization to send letters to the Congressional Black Caucus member from where they lived. We are a registered organization that is registered in the SAM system for nonprofit organizations, meaning we can do federal contracts with the government. And what I'm saying is, even when we work within the system, we are still not getting what we need from the system. And I'm saying I am someone that just doesn't just talk these things. I'm actually doing them.
And Sleepaway, and we understand that. We're not saying that you're not. But then also, I had somebody tell me, when you come and complain about a problem, you better have solutions, or I would take it as a problem.
Actually, no, that's not true.
That is true. I'm not going to sit there and say I have an issue. No, like,
wait a minute.
No, hold on. Let me go ahead. Let me go ahead and say my point. Because if I go to any one of my supervisors with a problem, if I have a problem with another coworker that I work with, and I'm having all these sorts of issues, and I bring it to him or her and be like, "Hey, Sergeant Major, I'm having trouble with Sergeant such and such. He belittles me, ... He gonna look at me like, okay, all right. I could go to him plenty of times saying the same exact thing, nothing happens. But Sergeant Major told me, he said, Boris, don't come to me with the problem. You can tell me your problem all day, but if you don't offer me solutions, at least offer me solutions to get it done, I will do something, because I will consider it as a complaint. So we're not saying that you don't do your due diligence. We're not saying that you're not out there putting in the work. We're not saying that, Sleepaway. And then when you saying that you have a nonprofit, I'm kind of wondering to myself, like, why have you groomed people to actually run in your community, into your local community? Now, we're not just talking about federal. Going back to what Chief says, lay your buckets where you stand.
Okay, when you say groom people in our local community, my local community, right, doesn't consent and never has consented to the authority of this government. So we run people to serve as officials within our own local community, which is what Teach is talking about. But let's go back to your point. If you have a pain in your appendix, okay? If you have a pain in your appendix, and what you do is you complain. I have this pain. It is not your responsibility to tell the doctor, who has the knowledge and the power, and is supposed to what? Use the knowledge and power that they have.
That's a stretch, Sleepaway. Come on.
Well, no,
that's a stretch.
It's not a stretch. What I'm saying
that's a bit of a stretch.
No, hold on. People that have complaints about either how the government is interfering in their lives, right? That's like blaming the victim. You can have a legitimate complaint and not know what the solution is.
See, where I'm going to have to disagree with you, because you have to have the solution. This is what should happen. If my appendix is hurting, the doctor's going to ask me, like, did you take any medications for it? Did you do anything about it? You just ain't gonna sit there and say my appendix been hurting. Okay. The doctor's going to ask Donnell, what medication.
Donnell, you can't prescribe medications for yourself.
Because you know,
if I'm at home and I have a pain,
people are obviously going to do their own thing to get the pain. Like, for example,
this is why I don't know what medication to take. I don't have that training. But
they're going to ask you, what did you do to relieve the pain? Because you got people like. No. I didn't even finish my point. I didn't even finish my point yet.
I drove to the hospital.
Yeah, but then they're going to ask you, what did you do for the pain? Like, what caused you to have the pain? What did you do?
I was laying in my bed.
How long did you have this pain?
It was excruciating pain. And so I told my brother, and my brother drove me to the hospital. Because when you have a pain, you go to the hospital. So when you ask me,
and then they also, go ahead.
Okay, I'll speak. You cannot expect a politician or an elected official to perform the functions of a doctor. A doctor, you go and say, hey, I'm in pain. The doctor will explore your body, run some tests, and target what is the problem. And he will prescribe a remedy for you to get better. With politicians, in my experience, and it's close to what Donnell said, everybody knows what problems are. They want to hear or they want to see the plan to remedy what the problems are. Okay. So just like your people heard your complaint, they heard 10,000 other people that had that same complaint. But the one that will stand out is the one that's bringing a solution. Because remember, these are people and they're searching for solutions too. What may not have occurred to them, it may be in you. But if all you do is bring the complaint and never bring the solution, yes, you lost this. You were number 9,999. They heard that 10,000 times.
Okay.
But the one person that brings the prescription is the person that they're going to roll with, because
okay. So
the pressure is on them to get the solution.
That is okay.
So think solution.
I agree with you that we, meaning the Black community, this is what I've been saying. I'm glad you agree with me. We as the Black community have to come up with our own solutions and not depend on the government or anybody else to have our own solutions. So I'm glad that we're in agreement. This is what I've been saying.
Well, it's not a matter of true solutions, because you say it in a matter of finite, this is the resolution we're going to come to, when really it's like, all right, before we fully say, hey, I need some help, I don't know what's really going on. I've tried all these other avenues and methods, and this pain is still persistent.
Okay, so
that's the real statements being made. Like, what do we do now?
Okay, so I am a firm believer, and I'm glad Teach is affirming what I've been saying. We have to develop our own solutions to our own problems. Once we have those solutions, then the question is what capacity do we have to implement them ourselves without anybody's involvement? And if we have that capacity, then we just implement them and we're all good. Now, if we have come up and said,
I can answer that question for you right now. There's a multitude of ways legally working within the structure that you do not want to work within, that you can still do it and stay under the radar. There's many different avenues that you can take.
I agree with you. I'm saying first and foremost, right? I agree, and I think Teach would support me. We have to identify our own problems and then come up with our own solutions. Our first level is if we can implement our solutions ourselves, that's preferable, because now we're not dependent on anyone. Now, if we can't implement our own solutions to our own problems ourselves, because for whatever reason we don't have the capacity, that's when, right, we need help. We may choose to want to engage in the system to get that help and then follow those channels. But this is what I've been saying. Right? You're going to have some problems, right? That this metaphor that I brought up with is accurate, meaning all of a sudden you experience this pain and you don't have a solution. So you're trying to find the people who can give you the solution. Okay. That's legitimate. We can't, if you don't accept that, then you're blaming the victim for not healing themselves. Sometimes when you're a victim, you got to get your healing from someone else. You have to go to a counselor. You have to go to a doctor. You have to go to a family or friend. You know that there's a problem, But if you knew what the solution is, you would implement it and you would be here. When you go to people, when you don't have the capacity to implement, either you don't know your solution or you don't have the capacity to implement it, you seek help. Government is supposed to be what? Supposed to be the caretaker in ordering the society and maintaining what? Order through law. So if there is a disorder, a pain in society, if you are accepting this government, the government has some responsibility to solve the problems of society. Otherwise, what is the purpose of government? Okay. Now, I'll give you a specific example. In my last campaign with the Congressional Black Caucus, we didn't just complain about something. We said, here's exactly the problem. Here's the solution. Here's what we need to be done. We came with a solution. We were very specific on what it was we wanted them to do and why it would help, right? And nothing. And this is the experience of most Black people. For example, most Black people that suffer from police brutality, that try to file police misconduct and go through that process, right, become so frustrated with their inability to get justice that they're finally like, okay, we're not even doing that anymore because they're not responsive to our needs. And right now, the mood of the Black community is, after all of these decades of engaging the system, electing officials like the Attorney General in Kentucky, right? We keep electing officials who Del Monte keeps saying they're groomed. They're not going to be responsible for us because the people who are actually responsible for us aren't groomed, and they don't, for the most part, allow them to reach those positions of power, because if you know anything about these positions of power, right, they give them to you as a form of political patronage and nepotism. You have to serve them, not the community. So Black people across the board at this point, more and more people are saying, look, we're fed up. If we believed that we could get some remedy from working within the system, we would do that. But that's exactly what we're tired of doing at this point.
Once again, when you got people that's already up in there, it goes back to teach. When you got 12 seats, you only got one. It's all about staying on code. I'm going to have to take a line from Tariq Nasheed. It's to stay on code. One saying that's been taught all through here, it takes one. That person got to hold the flag until we get more reinforcements and that they keep our issues alive. So, like, on all those points, I agree with you. But still, we have to have somebody. We have to take over in the local. It's not, like I said, it's not going to be an overnight thing. Is it going to take some time? Yes. I mean, we cannot forget what happened in Reconstruction. We talking about history, but let's talk about Reconstruction, when you had a lot of Black governors and majority of Congress was filled with Black representatives. And if Mr. O, if you watch it right now, yes, they were Republican. Hope that make you smile, Professor O. Hope that make you smile. So
I love that you're making my point. Go ahead.
Sees because we all, like I said, we all on the same sheet of music. We not against nobody, because we all going in the right direction. We just taking different.
I disagree.
avenues.
I don't think we're all going in the right direction.
But see, the thing is the thing that you're missing is that we have people that work within the system, but they forget to stay on code, because you got that thing called individualism that been planted us for many, many, many years. Like, for example, look at majority of these.
Forgetting that. I'm emphasizing that. That's my argument.
Yeah, but you're making it sound like we have.
But you're not on the inside.
On
you're not on the inside. You're not at the table. You may come to the table, but you're not at the table.
But you're making it seem like we can't go in and change the status quo, which I believe we can. We did it before.
You're right. That makes you a reformist. I'm saying, based on my reading of our history and my family's personal experience of being at the highest level of government.
And I understand that. And you're more at a libertarian.
I respectfully disagree. I
you
don't
on the
believe-
more of a libertarian side of things.
I don't believe
I'm saying that. I'm saying you're coming from a
evidence
libertarian
shows-
type of way where you're saying I govern me and my life, and government shouldn't even have no
I'm not.
involvement in that.
I wouldn't even use their own political classification. See, this is where you get into knowledge of self. I would say I am a descendant of Balanta people. Balanta people have.
But do you allow the government to govern you?
No, Balanta people have always rejected, right, state societies because of the violation of natural law and the inequalities they produce.
Okay, point taken. So, but my thing is, it sounds like you're just give up on the government. Just give up on the people that's already up in there. That's probably is trying to stay on code, but he or she. But he or she
just give up on the government. I'm saying do a studied analysis and come to a conclusion.
It should
that
be a study analysis.
Hold on.
But you interrupted me, and I'm trying to say my point. You've been filibustering everybody on this show. Let me give you a chance to explain.
Keep mischaracterizing my position, and so when you do say exactly what my position is.
My position is this: we can work within the system. With all the things that you're saying, I'm not saying that is wrong, but I feel deflated when I hear you say that. Well, government, is taking over. Everything is happening behind closed doors. Look here, I respect.
It is deflating.
No, the truth is that's your truth. What I'm saying is we can change the status quo. Black people had took over Congress before. Reconstruction wasn't no made up movie.
Listen, Black people didn't take over Congress.
Yes, they did. The reason why they lost the power is because those carpetbaggers went back up north because they felt sorry for the South, and that's when they all took over. And it's like you just counting all what our ancestors. If we want to talk about ancestors, it feels like you just taking away what our ancestors did in the past that got us to this point. Majority of the stuff that we have, like headphones, internet, the cell phone, all that stuff, was Black people did that. White supremacy tried to stop that, but Black people allowed that. White supremacy didn't just say, hey, we're just gonna let a few of y'all do this and that and doing that. I'm saying that we can change the status quo. We just gotta, and if we want to talk about Malcolm X quotes, Malcolm X said, we're not outnumbered, we're unorganized. If we get organized, stay on code, and actually be involved in our local governments, we can turn this shit around. White supremacy is gonna stop us here and there. Voter suppression is one big example. They taking people off the vote rolls, which is majority Black people.
Okay,
and like I said, once again, it goes back to Super PAC. I know it's gonna be etched in everybody's mind because I keep mentioning it because it keeps going back to that because the elites that you're talking about do it all the time. Why you think all these politicians, like once again, Mitch McConnell, he's been in Congress for as long as he has because he got the back pockets of the elites that's actually starting these groups to influence the people and groom them to get up into power. Why do you think Cameron's still up there? He's not only there just a token, because Cameron, going back to what I said about individualism, because I made it, hey, y'all on your own. But then you also got to think about the one person. I'm gonna use an example. Cedric Richmond, who's a representative, I think from Texas. He's on code, but it's only so much he can do because everybody just feels so defeated and they're not involved in politics, and nobody ain't doing anything. So I believe we can change the status quo if we all get organized.
Here's how we do it. First and foremost, we think outside the box. We apply their ruling with our logic. I'll go back to the term I coined when we had our first podcast, the devil's deal. You got to look at everything from both ends and see how this might benefit them, how it might benefit us, how it might benefit you, how you can fuck over anybody that you might want to fuck over if you choose to. because that's what politics is all about. So that you go into the situations setting yourself up correctly. You want to be a community person. You want to advocate and get the white people on your side. You know, white folk don't like gangs. You go back to old school. Hey, no more gang violence in residential neighborhoods. Like you, as the politician, get your hands dirty. You go meet up with all the official folk that you need to meet up with to let it be known and to arrange that type of deal that will state that, hey, I can't stop y'all from doing what you're doing. I can't stop y'all from, just like shooting at each other, but I can control the areas in which you do it. Now, you keep it out of the damn residential areas, I can assure that the cops won't be fucking with you like that. You keep it in these areas that are more along the ends of the damn city limits, areas that are not predominant or high traffic areas. You set it up the way y'all can do your dirt over there, keep the crime rate down, people love you, you get people's side on you, now you got the streets in your back pocket as well as the corporations, because the corporations see that you done did such a fucking great job by getting all this crime to go down with no arrest. It just kind of died down overnight, gradually. Nobody was really arrested. Crime, the arrest rate just slowly, meticulously went down naturally without any big hiccups or tragedies. You could set it up that way. It's just all matter of how dirty you want to get your hands. Because if you're going to be dirty, you might as well be dirty all the way. Especially if you're trying to get some good out of it. Think of it like being a farmer. If you really want to make sure you got a good crop, you got to get your hands truly dirty, get your knees dirty and your feet dirty. You got to get all up in that damn dirt to make sure. You got to leave the field filthy because that crop is going to look fucking majestic when it blooms. It comes in the harvest. But it's going to take a lot of dirt cascading on your body to get that job done. So how dirty do you really want to get the type of job that you want to get done? That's the question everybody needs to ask themselves. No matter how educated you are, how dirty you trying to get this, how dirty you trying to be. Because like I go back to the point of animation. Animation is one of the greatest tools that white folk have allowed by legal means. Because as long as something is animated, your personal human truth can be performed and showcased without any type of real life ramifications. Like if we were all animated right now, we could say the true truth of our hearts, how we really feel about white folk, how we really feel about the government. As long as it's animated.
Wait a minute, I'm doing that now. Are the rest of you not saying what you truly think and feel?
Oh no! When I say truly mean, we're speaking from the heart, but we have to be eloquent and articulate and have some form of etiquette and decorum with it. We can't just get right down and vulgar, because some things that we want to say. Engagement. Yeah, exactly. No, so there has to be some form of civility.
Wait a minute. I don't equate speaking from your heart with vulgarity.
No. I'm not equating the two. I'm just saying that because at some points,
without filters,
because without filters,
I'm not filtered right now.
Some things, but that's you. Personally.
That's what I'm trying to clarify. Like, am I the only person here that it feels?
No. When we say filtered, we're not concealing our truth. We're just saying we're being choice with our words to make sure that truth is actually being projected. Because I could easily say the same things, but it would come out a lot more vulgar and a lot more funny.
Okay, I'm listening.
But that's not needed for this discussion. I'm choosing what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying when we say we're being filtered.
If you speak your truth, it's going to come out more vulgar. I'm saying what we need right now from Black people is we need to be speaking our truth and have this is what freedom of speech is all about, and have the courage, because part of the problem is when we don't speak our truth has a vibration. And you Beast brought it up in your opening statements talking about we got to inspire people. the way you inspire people is not connecting from the intellect, it's connecting from the heart. That's why when people say, I had a heart-to-heart talk. Now, for most people, connecting the heart chakra with the crown chakra is a problem. This is why they say people get choked up, because the energy flowing from the heart chakra up to connect with the crown chakra meets at the throat chakra. And if you're not able to do that, you get what they call choked up. There are some people throughout generations, a lot of times we call them prophets. They are able to connect their heart chakra with their crown chakra so that they can say the truth and they're not concerned what the consequences are. See, I get people on my Facebook page that say, Sip, I wish I could post the things that you post, but I can't do that because I will get in trouble at work. So if we don't have people,
I get the same thing.
Right? If we don't have,
I just said,
yeah, if we don't have people that are willing to speak the truth for everybody that feels that they can't, without that filter that you're talking about. And that truth doesn't have to be vulgar. We only use vulgar when describing vulgar things, because that's truth. If you're talking about something that's vulgar, you will have to expose the vulgarity of it. Now, I heard Teach and Morris both say at different times that when they hear me talking about this, they actually feel discouraged and deflated, which, okay, I'm going to have to figure out a different way to present this, because that is the exact opposite of how I feel. I feel, this is why I said in my opening statement, I feel inspired and encouraged. I wake up every morning with so much things that I know to do that I don't waste any time. I see this as the greatest potential. What I'm saying is we have more potential in developing what you call super PAC. I call it a Black United Front. I don't like the term super PAC because when people hear super PAC, it already puts people in the concept or the milieu of working within this system. But I've heard
that's the whole point. That's the whole point.
But I've heard everybody
about perception.
Saying we got to think outside the box. So
exactly.
If we value thinking outside the box, again, what I'm saying is we can look at, observe, analyze, figure out this is the Republican one group of white people interest. This is the Democratic other group of white people interest. Let us develop our own interest. And I put it out there to our group, right, that only a crisis, actual or perceived, it's only a crisis that produces real change. Okay, a crisis produces real change. When that crisis occurs, the actions that are taken depend on the ideas that are lying around. Okay, so if you don't have people like me putting out the ideas outside the box that are not dependent on this political system, if those ideas are not lying around, we won't have the ammunition, we won't have the resource to harvest those ideas and apply them in the moment of crisis that can bring us the real change. If the only ideas lying around are reform ideas, reform doesn't bring about systematic change. That's the nature of reform. Now, Morris, you said something that was historically and factually incorrect. We never had a majority of Congress. We had a majority of in certain state legislatures like Mississippi. So within the state legislature during Reconstruction for a brief 14 years, we did have some states and local.
14 years is a pretty long time.
No, 14 years is not even a generation. That's a single lifetime. But here's my point.
But that's still a long period of time. That's 14 years.
All right. So
but that's my point. See, that's my point when you say about, well, I feel deflated when you say it. That's my point exactly.
Yeah, you have a way to minimize.
Okay, no, here's the reason. I got you.
Yeah.
See what?
What I'm saying is,
I got you. Hold on. See what?
Look at those 14 years in isolation, but after the 14 years is what happened after. And so when you look at the entire
Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Black Wall Street the Harlem Renaissance, freaking the NAACP was created. You had scholars like W.E.B. Du Bois.
Listen, I am someone
Booker T.
that
Washington.
appreciates all the contributions of our ancestors, but right now the context we're talking is electoral politics. So all
and right now the context is going on right now. What you're doing, we hear what you're saying, and the reason why it's coming off as kind of disparaging is because we hear you, and it's almost akin to being lost in the woods and being within 50 yards of the clearing, but you still can't see it. And I can hear you on the other side of the clearing, but you're telling me everything that's going on the outside of the clearing and up to the clearing. But I need some kind of direction. I need you you're not giving me any type of real key information to lead me to all this information that you have.
Okay,
it's there. We see that it's there. We see that it's there.
I'm not a mind reader. I can't know what each one of you needs. But for example, all that information.
That goes back. That goes back to presenting it. You're presenting it like a tenured professor.
Because
you're going in there, you're busting it down.
Okay, I presented a lot of information.
You have to present it in a manner that brings questions.
I presented a lot of information. Nobody asked any questions.
All right, go ahead.
Let's look at this. Are we giving the information to recruit and to persuade or to share? What is the purpose of distributing the information?
Okay, so my answer to that is to become informed. In order to make intelligent, wise decisions, you have to make informed decisions. This is why our ancestors said, right, that you have to know your history. If you don't know the history, and if you don't know the origin, and you don't know how things developed, you will repeat the same mistakes. So one part of the point of sharing information or putting information out there is to say, here are the things that you need to know so that you have the ingredients to make a calculation. Okay. And a lot of information has been kept from us. So you have people in our community that instead of working 8 hours a day for the white man, or working 8 hours a day in their system, they put that 8 hours into doing research and finding the information that they don't want to tell you. That's like their job, but they don't get paid for it. And what they do is they say, here, I'm bringing this to the community because I know you don't have the time or maybe the aptitude or the ability or whatever it is to go and get the information. Now, not all information is quality. If you read
exactly.
So how do you engage that information?
If you get 3,000 units of information, we need people that can who are true, have a track record of serving the best interests of the Black community to say, out of all the information that's out there, you can waste your time trying to go over all of it. Here's the most important stuff. So instead of spending 10 hours, spend 1 hour going over this information. This is why you have debates, because you're supposed to be informed about what these candidates think and what their policies are. Right. This is why you have a media. But right now, people don't trust the media. And then when it comes to independent Black thought, right, that is already informed historically, legally, socially, spiritually, meaning people that have done interdisciplinary studies that can relate all the best information from the legal side with all the best information from the economic side, with all the best information from the psychological side. We have people in the community that's their careers, but they don't get paid for that because this society doesn't want that to happen. When those people put the information,
what about what they want? What about your own empowerment? What I'm asking is this: what I hear from you, filter upon filter upon filter. You filter information and you filter it and you filter it and you filter it until you are crippled. You filter it until you can't move. You filter it until there's nothing. There's nothing to believe in. There's nothing to have hope for. There's nothing to strive for. Because I have intellectualized and I have learned and I have studied and I have done all these things, and all these things culminate into being paralyzed.
If your hope or your inspiration comes from a paradigm of within America, yes, you would feel hopeless. I feel greatly inspired. I believe in our people. I believe that we can achieve more by following a self-determined path. So it gets confusing to me why you would.
It's confusing to me that your path of self-determination includes being passive. And you say it's a mischaracterization, but the way it comes across.
Where do you get being passive? Like every day.
You're actively doing things that's not. You're actively engaging in a process that's yielding you no results.
How do you know that? What analysis?
Well, you just said it. Wait a minute. You said that you contacted the Black
analysis
Caucus.
Have you done of what it is that I am actually doing in my personal life and what results we've achieved? Like,
okay, let's roll back the tape. About 1 hour ago, you said that you had contacted so many representatives and you didn't get any results.
Right.
Those are your words.
Right. What I'm saying is
those are your words.
We didn't get any. Let me go ahead and finish my drink.
I don't got no water.
I didn't talk about the results that we get on our own initiative. I'm saying we're trying everything, working within the system, working with outside the system. The efforts that I'm involved in, I'm saying the progress we make is when we do things based on our own self-determined efforts. Whenever we try to work within the system, that's when we hit brick walls. That's when we're not making any progress. And I'm saying you don't really know enough to make the statement that you just said, right? Because you haven't.
I do know enough.
No, you don't.
I do know enough.
You're not.
Okay.
Just based on what you said. Based on what you said, I was able to make that conclusion. Based on your words.
The reform efforts from within this system are producing little results. Yes.
So I do know enough. And that's another thing too.
That's just one tactic. That's just
when one person
so what I'm saying is
believes that they have all of the knowledge.
We have all these agendas, all these efforts that we're doing, right? All these actions that we're taking within the system and outside the system, and yet you have the idea that I'm telling people to be passive. Simply because I've done an analysis of the effects of the electoral process, not just within the last 20 years, but going all the way back to what Del Monte was saying with Reconstruction, right? And when we did take majorities in local municipal elections, and when we did take majorities even at a state level, in only a couple of states, Mississippi and South Carolina, to serve me correct, if you have understood what W.E.B. Du Bois wrote in his 728-page Black Reconstruction, which is the premier document of actually what happened, not by a white person's account, but by our own greatest
Black Reconstruction, yes.
So what Du Bois is saying is that at that time, the fact that we were able to achieve majorities in some local communities and some state communities, the lesson that we can draw from that is that
they got out and voted.
Even that's why Du Bois in 1954, he says, I'm not voting. Du Bois himself, the premier intellectual, more than me, you, and anybody on this call, who wrote the landmark study on what was the aftermath of Reconstruction, came to the conclusion. He said, I am not going to participate in American electoral politics anymore. So if you only want to look at the 14 years and look at, okay, yeah, we did achieve that, but you don't want to look at the after effects of it and draw the lessons, when we do that and we are able to achieve this level of success, ultimately the result is this. That's the lesson to be learned. That's not me saying that. That's Du Bois saying that. He's the one said we need to stop voting in elections.
But see, this is why
So
we
you
got what we
stop
got.
voting and there's no progress. What I take from that is
There's no progress.
everybody can read into whatever they want to read into and come to whatever conclusion they want to come into. But the fact of the matter that when African Americans were given the right to vote, they voted in their legislators, they enacted policies that still exist to this day. Now, there was pushback and they were unseated. That's the challenge that we face. We always face the challenge of being unseated. We always face the challenge of not being able to continue our success. But that does not mean that we have to stop and fold our hands.
No,
Because
nobody's
so
saying
much
stop
was
and
done
fold your
when they
hands.
got the right to vote.
Why
And
not
they were
set-
able to be
why-
successful.
why
Even
not
if it
set
was
up
only
a
for
system-
4
Oh,
years,
wait, let her
Even
finish.
even
Let her
if it
finish.
was only for
Let her
14
finish.
years, they did it. But to not vote and not doing anything, when you look back, you're like, oh, they didn't vote, so they did not accomplish one thing.
And I'm saying that anybody
Exercise your power. Exercise your power. That's all I'm saying. My
your
message is
power-
exercise the power that you have.
the power that you
When
have
you meet the challenges that you meet.
not within the system.
When
so what
you
I'm
meet
saying
the
is,
challenges,
Okay.
you might win, you might lose, but
Okay.
at least fight.
Teach.
Just don't give up.
How about fighting is this? If you had the choice between a government where there is no white supremacist pushback within that government or the current government that you just described, which one would you prefer to exist in?
I would like to have no challenge, but they
Okay.
say growth comes with pain. We have worked through our pain.
What I'm saying is, can we begin to start conceptualizing that it's within our power to build a system and build a society where we don't have to.
Where? Give me the zip code. Give me the territory. Where are you talking about?
Wherever we build it. That hasn't been determined yet. You're begging the question.
That's the issue. No,
And
that's the issue.
I
Here-
said
okay,
you
here's the
can
reason
go
why.
2 square miles of land to get 150 people and begin the process.
No. To both of you. I got you. See what? To both of you.
Let me show
Yeah, to both of you, because you're both right. But the true problem is because the whole thing what we call systemic white supremacy is a global effect.
Yes.
So logically speaking, even if we are to achieve it by your means and under that path, the only way it will 100% be able to come to fruition with the most minimal amount of obstacles and pushback will be if we as the blacks or but they found a suitable area of land unbeknownst and unclaimed by any other nation.
No.
Because to try to find any type of land within any other land, you have to work with them. So it goes back to the point I made Wednesday. Even if we work here or work and like she said over there, we still have to to a certain degree become beholden to another person's rule. They're not just going to give you a free plot of land and let you do what you want to without any type of involvement whatsoever in perpetuity. The only way that can truly happen.
This is
And
why.
that's the immaturity of that particular
This is
vision.
why the approach of just get 2 square miles and put 150 people on it is so ridiculously foolish.
No.
What we're talking
both of your the honest point is, sir.
system.
No, sir. The honest point
let me
is
jump
that
in.
when it comes to both of you on this particular subject, you're both being foolish because, in all honesty, you need your own uncharted, unclaimed land. That way, it could be 2 square miles, but it can't be claimed and attached to any other nation. Any other nation, not just America.
Already. African people globally are how many hundreds of millions of people?
But when we go over there, we still have to become beholden to their rules and regulations, which is basically the equivalent of me moving from North Carolina the state to Arkansas the state. Yeah, I still have to become beholden to their state cultures and state regulations.
Listen,
unless I find my own little land, and sir. I'm gonna filibuster for a minute. I got to filibuster for a minute because even for those individuals that live out in the wilderness, the Life Zero people, they still have to maintain some kind of civil alliance with the government and with the closest local state affiliate in order to maintain their consumer goods, things that they need in order to do that.
I'm not disputing that. Already on this call, I forget who it was that said that. You said there's strength in numbers. And the entire Pan-African project is based on the historical understanding that we have a common enemy. That common enemy is the system of white supremacy and the people who administrate it. Okay. So the answer to the question where is, we were already given land by the Creator. We don't have to take land from somebody. We have land. What we need.
That's the same logic. That's the same logic that the white people used, and they use force to enforce it. So unless we're going to do the same thing, we need to get discovering like Christopher Columbus.
White people said, there's land over there that we don't occupy, and we're going to go conquest it. What we're saying is we already have land as African people, okay? And we have an entire continent. If we could raise the level of consciousness, right? If we could raise the level of consciousness, we don't have to go on an imperialist conquest mission. If we understand that collectively we are all suffering from the same common enemy, and what we can do is we can leverage our strength in numbers and our territorial dominance in a land base that we already occupy and set up our own defense. Now, if people on the African
I asked where. Name a land. Name a specific location.
The African
One
continent.
specific
The African continent is a specific location in the same way as when the Europeans came here.
We're not speaking historically. We're not speaking historically. We understand what you're saying. We understand what you're saying
right now.
Yes.
Where on
let's see Wade finish. Go see
Where on the earth, on what territory on the earth are we the majority population? The simple, common, non-scholarly answer is the African continent. We are already numerically superior there. And in fact, that's where we came from. And that's where the crime was committed that put us in the situation we're in now. So if you
understand that, but my question is it functional? Is it practical? If you got on the airplane today, where would you land? And where would you build?
All right, let me answer
specific. Let's talk specifics. Let's
stop
talking ambiguous, way over the rainbow stuff, but very specific.
Okay, me personally, I'm going to answer that. Me personally, I'm going to Chokman Village in Nakra, right? That is controlled by Balanta people. Now, the Chokman Village is on the continent of Africa. I don't know where your people come from.
I didn't ask you about my people. Just ask specifically for you. Answer for you.
I gave you the most specific answer that could possibly be given. I actually named the village.
No, sir.
Okay,
No,
when
no,
you
did not.
talk about elevating people and raising the consciousness,
let's
you need to remove the blur. You have to remove the blur and be very specific. I deal with people every day that want to move to the continent, but I give them very specific places and very specific governments that will allow them to migrate into their area.
Okay. All right, Chief, let's see.
So if you want to elevate, be specific.
Let me finish.
Be specific.
I'm being specific.
Go on, boy.
I'm going to answer for me specific personally, and then I'm going to answer generally for every black person.
No generalization, none.
No, what? Okay, listen. I'm going to answer your question on two levels. Me individually, but I'm also going to answer it so that any person listening to this show will have a specific answer on where they need to go and how to do it. The answer to that problem is you go where you were taken from. When you do that, right, when you return to your own people, that has nothing to do with governments. I'm not even talking about that. When you go to the village of where your people are, right, that is fundamentally different than going anywhere else on the planet. So I'm saying, for me personally, I'm going to go to Nakra, okay? There are villages in Nakra, right, in Guinea-Bissau, where my ancestors come from. So I can answer the question, where is the territory that God gave me? We all say, sit under your own vine and fig tree. The answer to the question is you got to go, you do your work under your own vine and fig tree. Now, everybody that's listening, the solution is this. Step number one, you have to identify your genetic ancestral lineage. That's step number one. Once you do that, you have to make the connection with other people that share your lineage on both sides of the Atlantic so that you have the actual connection and support to the people on territory that God gave you. Nobody has a superior claim to that land than this is the land that God gave us. Okay. Once in that territory, as black people, what we have to do then is say, based on our entire knowledge base of our experience, what we have learned is, if we don't put aside our religious differences, our political differences, our class differences, our educational, if we don't put all that aside and understand that our number one priority right now is we have a common enemy who has shown us for 400 years that they will kill us, rape us, put us into servitude, take the minerals from our land, and use them to create a society that increases the gap between the power gap. So the work that we have to do is not engaging in this political system in America. The work that we have to do is getting all the villages in the territories we already occupy and control to understand we have to now defend our borders, our external borders, which is this continent. We have the ocean. We have to come up with a way where we can defend ourselves against these people. That's the solution.
So you don't think that they're already doing that?
No, it's
or
a work.
Do you think that's what you're bringing from America?
No, it's a work in progress. Come on, teacher.
Do they even see them as their enemy? Because with my travel,
when you say they, who's the they? Are you referring to?
I'm speaking of the Balanta people. For
Yoruba, I can't speak for Akan. I can't speak for Bamileke. I can only. I don't know who your people are. I'm saying my people.
I'm asking you about your people.
And yes, my people, yes, they know that. And so my people will then try to talk to their neighbors, the Jola, the Manjako, the Bajago, right? The Fula and the Mandinka, those and the Brahme and the Nupa. Those are the people that are our neighbors. They have their people.
And
on
so
this-
they're not already actively engaging in this conversation on the continent,
No, they-
identifying
No,
who
they
their
are.
enemy
You're
is.
not actively engaging in it. You're not
No,
part
I'm
of this
asking
group.
you. I'm
Yes.
asking you because the way you
The answer is
posed it,
yes.
the way you posed it was very
We about to go in
imperialistic.
overtime.
Right. They are. No, it's not imperialistic. You're not going. You fundamentally misunderstand. So let me correct you once again.
No, you fundamentally did not. You fundamentally said it that way.
No, I
Okay,
didn't. I said
you
what
did.
is once you find out your ancestral lineage, you then connect with the people over there.
I heard what you said. You don't have to repeat it. But what you
Well, then you didn't understand what I said.
What you did not explain is the actual migration process.
We haven't gotten to
terms
that
of-
yet. I was in
Okay.
the. I'm going to get there before you can.
No, you're
migrate.
talking about fighting the war of racism and
This
systematic
this
white
is the answer
supremacy.
needs to go like this.
And you,
This is how the answer needs to go, Teach.
it's too broad for a person that
Yeah.
wants to
Only
relocate.
too broad
No.
because you haven't let me elaborate the details.
Because you don't, we don't need details. This is what you need. This is what you
Right,
need.
you
No,
missed
see
the
what? See
mark.
what?
What
This is
I'm
what
saying
needs
is
to
you
be
missed
said.
the mark. There's
All right, all right.
a
This one needs
bullseye
to be
and you
said.
missed the mark. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I got
You
you,
missed
Teach.
the mark.
I got you, Teach.
All right, all right.
Hold on, hold on.
Listen, you cannot.
We understand all that. No, sir. We understand all that because it's
Yeah,
been
yeah.
stated before. I got
Yes.
I got to hit you like Mr. O. What needs to be said right now is, in respect to me, if anybody else wants to go, like by going to either this website or Googling this search word, the search keywords, and taking the step to contact these people. After you contact these people, you can then go by doing the same means. Once you get your, find out, hey, you're this particular, then you can go from here, find locally. Once you get, that's still giving the people the information, but giving it to them in a more direct manner where they can actually see themselves doing this. Like, okay, I could do that from my phone right now. What was that website again?
Go to
What
lin-
do you say? I could Google what?
Just Google
Like-
lineage restoration movement.
See, that's what they needed. That's what needed. Then from there, all right. After you get the test,
Information.
after you find that what you are, how do you go about finding
So
getting that connection? Where do you need to go? What
You have
sites?
to
What
contact their
keywords?
government.
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
that is not the first thing that you do. You're not. Give me the opportunity, the space to give you the step-by-step instructions.
Well,
I don't have 5 hours. I
Okay,
do
all
not
right.
have 5 hours.
Okay, all right. Everybody, let's break it in. Everybody break it in. Okay, everybody break it in.
Don't interrupt me.
Yeah. I'm trying to help you. Wait, I'm trying to help you out. So everybody, let him go ahead and explain because we going into overtime and it's Friday and y'all don't work on
Give the
Saturday.
brief version. Give the brief version.
Yeah, and
Because we're
that's-
already
that-
2.5 hours in. We do not have
Right.
5 hours to say
But-
that from one location to the other. You have to contact the government and let them know your intentions on staying in their country. You have to. There's
all right.
no way around that.
All right, Cheech.
I mean, there is. You could just go and just hang out in the bush.
All right. All right. So no interruption. Let's let Seepaway explain it briefly as he can. Seepaway, you got the floor. No interruptions.
All right. Step number 1, go to Lineage Restoration Movement. Just Google that, and they're going to take you to the website, and you're going to get all the information there. Step number 2, you have to take the African ancestry test to find out what your lineage is. I suggest you take both the maternal and the paternal, okay? And once you find that out, the next step is join the History and Genealogy Society in America for your group. If your group hasn't established one, that's your next instruction. You have to establish a registered group, right, for your ancestral lineage. Once you have your History and Genealogy and Society group, the function of that group is to help each person then do the genealogy work to be able to identify, right, your family history and who was it that survived the Middle Passage, where they came from and what their language was. Okay. Once you have done that, right, the history and genealogy societies, those that are in existence now, already have a network where they're connected with the people in whatever part of Africa you came from. Okay. And so what you do is you join that network. Once you get a part of that network, then you start learning the language and you make your first welcome home visit. When you make that visit, you're going to be received by your people. You're going to they're going to take you from out of the city and take you to the actual places where they live, the villages. And through that process, you're going to find out where you come from. And you're going to start building a relationship with your people who you share the ancestry with. This is how you build the trust, because it's going to be your people who are your security in that country. Because some of those country governments are every bit as bad or worse as the United States government. Okay? We are under no illusions about that. But the reason why this is the step and why you have to do this is because this is the only territory on the earth that we have that is ours that we can defend. Okay? The way you're going to defend that is not by partnering with the government. The way you defend that is by partnering with your people who you have a bond of ancestral bond, and you develop that bond of trust. Then what happens is, for example, I'll use me for an example. Once you are a member of your history and genealogy society, all of those societies who share ancestry within a particular country are going to form that country's lineage council. Meaning, let's take Nigeria, for example. You'll have your Yoruba group, your Ifa group, right? All the different groups, right? Once that group has a membership of 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, now you have leveraged collective power. And at that point, when you have your connected to your group in Africa, it's your lineage group that now starts the lobbying efforts on both sides of the Atlantic. So, for example, in my case, it's the Balanta people who start going to the government of Guinea-Bissau. So instead of me going to the government of Guinea-Bissau as an individual African-American who's trying to get something, now an entire community of 400,000 people in the country of Guinea-Bissau who have a vehicle is now negotiating with the government saying, these are our people who need to return home. Here is our plan. At the same time, while we're doing that, this is how you engage the United States government. They already have programs based on ethnic heritage. You can get up to $1 million a year once you qualify for these programs. 55 different ethnic groups have done it. Only one ethnic group of African-American people have done it, and that's the Gullah Geechee. The reason why we're not doing this is, one, because we don't know about it, and two, we don't have the status. If you don't know what your ethnic heritage is in America, meaning for me, it would be the Balanta heritage in America. Now, if that history isn't documented, you have to go through the process of documenting that history so you can get that status. Nobody said this was going to be easy. There is as much work or more work to do in this process as there is to try to get what you want from in this system. All I'm saying is, if you realize you're going to have to do work, you need to ask yourself, if I put in all this work, which is more likely to result in long-lasting dignity, right? Trusting the people in their system that enslaved us, or doing the work, right, amongst the people that I belong to under my own vine and fig tree in a landmass that we already control. We don't have to conquer. We don't have to go on any kind of imperialistic war. All we have to do is raise consciousness. Neither solution is going to be easy. I'm suggesting that what we do is decide, which one do you want to work for? If you want to work for trying to stay in this country and making that work, that's fine. But if we don't put out a clear alternative, and the alternative is it's all based on your lineage. And when you go back to your lineage, right, that's how you engage the government with power. You can't do it as an individual. So right now, the most important thing that you could be doing to prepare yourself for the future is discovering your lineage and building your lineage institution that is going to engage in this work, so that you don't have to do it as an individual, because you all share the same ancestry, and historically you are tied to this landmass. It gives you status in domestic law and international law. So you can engage the United States government, but you have a choice. Do I want to engage the United States government as a Black African American with no status and no external power independent from the United States? Or do I want to engage the United States government from a completely different status? That's the work that needs to be done. Now, if you want even more details and even more, if you don't have a history and genealogy society in America for your group, we can show you how to do that. We can actually give you the bylaws. You just put your group's name in there. We'll show you how to find. You can have that next week. We can expedite the progress. And then you can do what we've already done. In 1 year's time, we've already entered negotiations with the government of Guinea-Bissau. They've already started implementing how they're going to welcome and return us. And we're not even talking about business development. We've already shown them, hey, this has nothing to do with how much money you can get us to invest in the country. So if we could do this in 1 year, right? Imagine the progress that we could make if everybody uses this template, follows it, and we all worked collectively together. Now, when shit hits the fan in America, you do have a place to go to in Africa. You're going to go and sit down with the people that are your people that you have a relationship with. Are you going to be all cozy with that government? Maybe or maybe not. But you're not cozy with this government. But at least there you have what? A community that your ancestors, now we got to bring the spiritual component into it. The ancestors want you to be there. They're going to work on our behalf if you go and do that. So there's a whole lot more to it. I tried to be short. I know sometimes I get rangy, but we actually have a process that is producing a lot of progress. And this is one of the reasons why I came on this platform, was to be able to share that and inspire people to say, you have an alternative from what we've been doing since 1865 that hasn't been working.
Your rebuttal, Teach?
Well, I mean, that's one way. That's one way things can be done. And I think we have to be open to understand that there's more than one ways to skin a cat. And not everybody is even going to go the genealogy route. There's a gentleman that goes by the name of Ken Ganda on YouTube. And he currently lives in Uganda, and he's blogging his transition from America to Uganda. And he lived in Kenya. And he talks about the business aspect, how basically he found what worked for him in Uganda. So there's many ways to skin a cat. If you want to go the route of relocation, there are there's other ways to do it. I had the opportunity to go to Ghana. Donnell, you may remember in 2016, I was offered a Queen mothership, and I was also offered land, sight unseen. They had not, well, these particular people had not seen me, but my reputation led them to reach out to me to offer me these things. So there's ways that things can be done. I would go in as a queen mother, high status in society. So there's many ways to connect to the continent. There's not just one way, and there's no right way, but there are many ways that it can be done. I have a young lady that is afraid to fly. I don't know how she's going to get to Africa, but she's constantly trying to contact people specifically in the Gambia. For whatever reason, she's drawn to the Gambia. I have, suggested that she get the DNA test like Sipaway, but some people don't even want to go that route. But she's trying to buy a house and she's trying to buy land, and she's never been to Africa, and she's afraid to fly. But she's actively engaging, going in her direction. So there is not one right way, and there is not the only way, but there are multiple ways. As many people as there are, that's how many ways that it is.
Okay.
And that's where we have to be open
to
allow people to make up their minds whether they stay here in America because they find their identity here. And then there's those that's restless and would rather go to Africa. We have to be able to allow people to make up their minds as to what it is that they want.
Of course, we have no power to prevent people from doing anything or make them do anything. And I agree with you, there are many ways. However, there is in society what are called best practices. And best practices work for the majority of people. So you will always have people that can come up with, I want to do it this way or that way, and they're free to do that. But in business world, in politics, in development planning, what most educated people do is they study what are the best practices. And right now we are developing the best practices. We have studied people that have gone in their individual capacities at various levels of education and various levels of finance, their successes and their failures. And so what we are doing is we're developing a best practice so that for the majority of people, it will be successful. So yes, everybody's free to do what they want, but a responsible government, so to speak, what they do is they study something and they say, here are the best practices. And what you do is you promote the best practices because it, by definition, will have the greatest effect on most people. Right now, we're in the midst of the third Great Migration. Okay, the Great Migration that happened after Reconstruction, Black people moved from the South to the North in the millions. But it didn't start that way. Everybody didn't go at once. And if you actually, again, this is why I always promote studying the history. If you actually study that Great Migration, what you will find is the people that left the South first, they were the lighter skin in general, not all, but in general, they were lighter skinned and they had greater means. When those people left the South and went to the North and they got established there, then their family members came. And after it was observed that these people were doing better than they were in the South, that's how years later you had 1 million people happen. Now, the Black exodus from America is already underway. It's been underway. It was officially announced in 2019 with Ghana's Year of Return. But it actually was officially announced in 2007 when Ghana announced the Joseph Project. But that marketing scheme wasn't marketed to African Americans. It was marketed to Black people in England because 2007 was the 50-year anniversary of Ghana's independence in 1957, and it was the 200-year anniversary of Britain's abolishment of slavery of 1807. The Black exodus back to Africa is already underway, and the early adopters are already on the continent. What will happen is, at some point, critical mass will be achieved. Now you're taking understandings from a different branch of science. Once a critical mass of people have become established in Africa, and they're reporting back, yeah, there's problems over here, but one of the problems is we don't have to deal with the white racism. We don't have to worry. We're not dealing with this step. I'm asleep in my house, and the police are breaking down my door, and they're fabricating, warrants, and they're doing police misconduct. We're not dealing with that. There's other
the greatest complaint now on a continent is culture.
Okay.
The greatest complaint is culture and fitting in with the community.
This is why the lineage restoration movement has solved that. The way you solve that problem is you prepare people with the culture that they naturally want to adopt, because scientific observation, what we have observed, the 500,000 people who have already taken the African ancestry test, We've already scientifically observed the 4 phases that they go through. The first phase is they want to get all the information on their particular tribe that they come from. The second phase that they go through is they now want to connect with other people who got the same test results. The third phase that they want to go through is they want to actually go to the place where they come from. And the fourth phase is they want to start internalizing and adopting that culture that they now witnessed with their own eyes. So the lineage restoration movement is preparing the people by saying, okay, here's the language. Each group is developing language lesson and teaching the history and the culture that they never knew, so that when they go there, they're actually acculturated to make the transition easier. And when they're received by the host community and they see these people aren't coming here to exploit us, these people aren't coming here because they're trying to make a buck by investing in a better coffee shop or a high-end luxury hotel. These people are coming here because they want to reconnect with the ancestors and they want to learn the language, and they have a genuine interest of being one with us. When you go to the continent that way, the chances of success escalate. And this has been the missing element in the repatriation back to Africa movement. Until now, before the genetic testing, everybody that went, 95% of them went to a place where they don't even share the ancestry. And so they were always received as a foreigner, or some level of, okay, they're Black, they're African, but they're not really us. Now we have the opportunity to go back without that kind of barrier. And this is why there's so much hope and optimism, because we all know that the reason why the West is so wealthy is because of the mineral resources on our territory that we have what?
Okay, let's not start a new conversation. Let's not do this.
Yeah.
I just wanted to inspire
Let's
you.
not.
Yeah. So
you don't have, you're preaching to the choir. You're preaching to the choir.
Earlier conversation.
No, because you were off note. You were off note.
You say I'm off note. I'm saying there's something wrong with your hearing.
It could be. I'm a senior citizen, and over time that hearing does go.
On you. Okay, might not be. It could be you.
Well, I don't know who's off note and who can't hear, but we at overtime. Hope y'all can hear that. That's on key. So yeah. So once again,
I make a motion. No closing statements. We simply say good night.
Yes, I think so too, because y'all ran into my overtime. Good grief, man! Y'all did to me again. But y'all did it to me again. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, that was another great show. Teach, will you be? Well, Monday we gonna be off. It's gonna be Indigenous Day over here. So Monday we're not even gonna do a show. Everybody take a load off. I'm gonna be on my leave, and I need to go out and have a little bit of fun and not try to get corona. But any final statements before we head on out? I think y'all said enough. But that, once again, even like I said, ladies and gentlemen, even though we get deep on these discussions, but these are discussions that need to be had that you're not going to hear anywhere else. So we thank everybody for tuning in. We was actually live on YouTube. We're going to try to have more special shows where we direct it like only to Facebook. Sometimes we're going to do it all over the place, but I want to direct more of our content to all the other places, all the other platforms when we do a show. So on behalf of Seepaway, Anita Joe, aka Teach, and myself, Donna Monte Moores. Seepaway, could you give that address once again to everybody to look it up?
Lineage Restoration Movement.
All right. Okay.
Google that.
Yeah, I'm gonna start putting that on the bottom so people can look it up. Any sound bites, Teach, real quick.
Kwaheri Yakuka Goodbye until we meet again.
And once again, I'd like to thank our sponsor, RealCheddarBoyPopcorn.com. Once again, check it out, RealCheddarBoyPopcorn.com. Congratulations, Mr. Jones, for getting himself a store finally. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to head on out. Y'all have a good weekend. Please stay safe. Once again, there's a disease out there. Wear a mask. Y'all have a good one. Once again, thank my panel. Thank y'all for tuning in. We out. Goodbye.
you.